Hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. My name is Brett Pontecorvo, and we're here every Thursday interviewing gig performer users and generally interviewing musicians, hobbyists, and people who are using Gig Performer to supercharge their live performances. And week after week, I'm blown away by the use cases that people are finding for Gig Performer and how they're setting things up. But today we have an even cooler episode because we're going to be talking about software we can use to supercharge Gig Performer. And that's going to be really fun. I've actually had a lot of fun preparing for today's episode. So I think everybody's going to be very excited to meet Florian and to hear about MIDI Translator and everything that's possible. He also has a couple of other things we'll talk about that amplify the effects of this program. But if you're watching right now, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. Let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and let us know if you are a current Gig Performer user or if you are a current Bome MIDI Translator Pro user. I'd love to know who's using what software, and we'll shout you out on the stream. Just support our viewers, and thank you for being here. So like I mentioned, today we are interviewing Florian. He is the creator of Bome MIDI Translator, and you'll see on the screen right now, we've just got kind of like a little demo of what's possible with this software, and in this case, just converting a note message to a CC message. And this really just scratches the surface of what's possible with this software. So I think you're really going to enjoy what's coming. Now, for those of you who are watching today, next week, we have another fantastic guest named Don Jakowski. And if you can see, this is one of the rare pictures in which the keyboardist's face appears in the image. We don't usually talk about the drummers because, as you can see, the drummer's face is totally hidden. But Don is there in the back playing keys. He's doing a really cool setup. Double Hammond organ and some other controllers, along with a wind controller to power all of his horn sounds. It's a really fascinating setup, and I think it will be an absolute inspiration. So don't forget to join us next week. We've got a couple of folks writing in here. So Clint, Bome MIDI Translator Pro user. Clint, thanks for being here. We appreciate you. We've got Lance White, a happy Gig Performer user. I love it. And we've got... I'll need a translation on this one. We've got a really cool image. My German is not up to snuff, though. Gig Performer and Bome Pro user. So best of both worlds here. Paul, Bome user as well. Thank you for being here. And then we've got Fake Ink, MIDI Translator Pro user from Hamburg, Germany. Lots of folks here. Jim Irwin, former Backstage guest. So friends, thanks for being here. I want to jump in today's stream because that's why we're here, guys. So without further ado, I want to welcome on our special guest, Florian. Florian, welcome to Backstage.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's an absolute honor. We really appreciate you. I know I've given a bit of an overview of what you do with Bome MIDI Translator, but for folks who don't know anything about you, don't know anything about your software, who are you? Who are you and what do you do, Florian?
So, yes, I'm the founder and basically main man of Bome software, and I'm creating a MIDI software, Bome MIDI Translator, as you've mentioned, and the Bome Network tool, which is becoming more and more of a versatile MIDI router and MIDI network software as well. And then a couple of years ago, we came out with the Bome Box, which is the hardware version of these MIDI tools. So yeah, that's basically what I do, what we do at Bome, translate MIDI for food. So
yes. Oh my goodness. I love that. I'm stealing that. That's so good. So you're a developer. Did you spend most of your career developing before Bome MIDI Translator?
Well, I started MIDI Translator 25 years ago.
Wow.
So that was still during my studies.
Okay.
And since then, I've done a lot of programming. And but then, of course, I founded the company around MIDI Translator. And as everyone who knows, who has founded a company, things demand a lot more, like bookkeeping and
Yes.
all the administrative stuff around it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish I had more time for actual development,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it's it's still okay, and still
Yes.
my main favorite part of my job.
Yes. Yeah, it is astounding the second it turns into a company how quickly you're like, "Oh, now I have to do all of this auxiliary stuff that I didn't expect." But yeah, I
Yeah,
hear you.
yeah.
So, how did Bome MIDI Translator start? What what happened?
So I guess as for many products, I needed something to map my knobs on a synthesizer because I found that only six knobs um, are not definitely not enough for me, and they didn't do what I want to do.
Hmm.
So I wrote a quick and dirty software to map those, and then I thought, oh, it would be great to have like multiple layers so I can quickly switch what those six knobs do. And then I thought, well, maybe other people find it useful too. I put it on the internet, and the rest is history.
Wow. So, what year was this roughly? This first
I
down and dirty version.
I think that was in 1999.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I was reading an article the other day, and somebody was talking about how you have to be careful if you write some "Hello World" code, because the moment you do, you may end up writing another line and another line and another line and another line. Anyway, but I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of what happened. You wrote some code to remap these six knobs, and
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
thought, I wonder if, and and now we're off to the races. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
and of course, I got so much feedback from users
Mm.
because same thing. What happened to me is they wanted more features. They had great ideas how to make it better. Someone came up with the very stupid idea. Hey, why don't you allow me to send keystrokes instead of MIDI? So
Mm.
I thought, why would you want to do that? Do you want to type with your like a musical keyboard, write your thesis with your by playing music?
Yeah.
I didn't really understand, but that feature was quickly becoming one of the best features of MIDI Translator
Mm-hmm.
because it allowed you not to type text. I mean, technically it does, but to issue shortcuts and control any software on your computer.
Mm-hmm.
So that really was and is great functionality to be able to control other stuff on your computer, not only MIDI
Mm-hmm.
software, basically.
Not to mention that you could turn a very plain old keyboard into a MIDI controller.
Yes, and a little later, we also added the reverse part of taking
Yes.
keystroke computer keystrokes and converting them to MIDI.
Yes. So it's a wild thing, and I was chatting with you, and you were kind of mentioning Bome MIDI Translator. It really does so much that it's sort of like you discover it by figuring out you have a problem, and it solves it because it really is. It's a big world of possibility inside the software.
Yes, that's the great thing about MIDI Translator, that it is relatively generic, so it allows you to do a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
set up your MIDI flow exactly as you like it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also a challenge for me if people ask me, so what does it do?
Right. Right.
And well, it does a lot.
It does a lot. It does a lot. But, at its basic form, it takes one thing and turns it into another thing.
Yes, exactly.
Which is wonderful. So, I would love to show users what this software looks like just on a basic level. So, I'm going to bring in
Yeah.
your screen share here. And can you talk about what we're looking at? What is this?
Yes, so this is the main window of MIDI Translator. It usually has three areas: the left area where you have the project and the presets, the center area where you have a list of translators, and the right area, which is maybe you can call it the properties area, where you can edit all the different parts that you want to edit.
Yes.
So if I have enabled the project here, which is now still an untitled project, I haven't saved it yet. At the right, I can now enter author info, select the default MIDI ports that I want to use in my project for MIDI in and MIDI out. It also has a MIDI router, so you can set up MIDI routing by just drawing lines.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. I didn't know that. See, I'm learning something new right now. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So that's the project scope. You can also, for Mac users, you can also add Apple script snippets here. And then if you go back to the left, there's the in the presets area. That's basically, you can think of it as a folder of translators. So every preset has a list of different translators, and you can add as many presets as you like. So if we go in the preset, I can select a translator, and that's the core functionality. Every translator allows you to set some general options like the name and to enable and disable it. Then the incoming action, that's what it takes as input. And there is by now quite a list of things you can select. So the typical thing is a MIDI message. So you can select from a range of MIDI messages, basically all defined MIDI messages. And for every MIDI message, you can select which one. Of course, easier is to just click Capture MIDI and let's see, I'll select a MIDI port here. Where is my nano control? I have that one currently connected, so I can move a fader or push a button, and then I can see what's coming in and just double click on it, and it's all filled out now.
Yes.
So that's the incoming section. So right now it's set as a button, and rules is more advanced stuff. You can add little scripting here if you like. Modify the values of the MIDI message that is coming in. And in the outgoing, again, there's a list of different actions that you can do in response. Whenever you press that button now on my controller, one of these actions is performed. So I was talking about the keystroke thing. So I can say I want to send a keystroke. For example, Control S, it's usually used for saving, for example. So when I press the keystroke, well, I don't even remember which one. Oh yeah, it has entered the keystroke here into that
entered it
field.
Right in the thing. We saw it come in.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
So for sake of demonstration, I leave it as that.
Yeah, well, so this is, I didn't even think about this, but if you're using a MIDI device with a video editor, and you may want a button to save your project. I mean, that's an absolutely amazing use case.
Exactly.
And from what you're demoing here, there's a pretty low barrier to entry. Right? You're just saying when this comes in, this goes out.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. Incoming, rules if you need, and outgoing. And the fun, of course, starts when you add more and more of these, because again, there's one translator here, but you can add as many as you like. There are people who have literally created project files with thousands of presets, and each preset having hundreds of translators or thousands of translators. So you can really go wild if you
Yes.
like to.
Yes. Yeah. And having played with the software now for just a few weeks, I see why you might. I see why you might go wild.
Yeah.
People talk often about wanting to feel more attached. And, we, at Gig Performer, we're always dealing with live performance minds, people who are trying to play. And we hear sometimes like, I miss the feeling of hardware.
hmm
And in this paradigm with Bome MIDI Translator, you can get the feeling back even on an editing level, because these knobs and faders can be remapped to control anything you wish, from something as simple as saving to something way more complex than that.
Yeah.
If you had to, is there one project or preset that you couldn't live without in your own daily life?
Huh. That's a tough one. Well, probably um, image editing with Lightroom or
Okay.
sorting through images
Okay.
and adjusting just a few parameters, exposure and color, whatever. That's so much faster with a MIDI controller
Yes.
um, than to use the mouse for that.
Yes.
So I have a preset set up for that in MIDI Translator Pro.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. I'm already seeing all of the possibilities. And as we were preparing for today, one of the things I thought is like, okay, as a musician who's performing live, or even preparing to perform live, how could I use this software to amplify what I'm doing? So with the help of you and also Steve Caldwell, who's I'm reading the comments here, and everybody's like, Steve is amazing. Um,
He
so
definitely is.
so thank you, Steve, for all of your help here. But I wanted to showcase just a few things that I thought, oh man, Gig Performer users, how can we make this software, supercharge our ability? And the first thing that I came up with is, if you have a controller like this, you probably actually don't need this functionality, because this has way more knobs and faders and buttons than probably most people use. But I love this controller. But I thought, what if you have a controller that only has a few faders, and you're dealing with a project where you want to have control over many more things? And so I'll show you what it does in Gig Performer first, and then I'll show you how Bome MIDI Translator did it. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and mapped just these 4 faders here to widgets inside of Gig Performer. And I thought, if I only had 4 of these, but I wanted to control all of these, what would I do? And in Bome MIDI Translator, what I can do is press this button, and now these same 4 faders are controlling different widgets inside of Gig Performer. And I can actually do the same thing again, and get a whole nother set of controls. So you can take any type of MIDI controller, and probably even more than MIDI controllers, and expand them. So you could go from having control over 8 faders to having control over an unlimited amount of faders. And for those of you who are watching right now, I am not a Bome MIDI Translator expert by any means, which I actually think in a lot of ways makes this more compelling, because I don't fully understand what I'm doing, and I was able to build this in just a few minutes. Which is really cool. And I'll show you the one that Steve helped me with, because that one's really that one's awesome. That one's high level. But essentially what I've done here is, Florian, you were talking about how this sort of represents a folder. Is that true? Is this my folder over here?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have set up a shift key, which is in here. And essentially what it does is it looks for this button on my controller, which is CC60. And then down here under my outgoing action, I just have it set to change a preset. So it just scrolls to the next preset. So you'll see when I hit this button, if you take your eyes over to the left, it's activating or deactivating one of these buttons. And it's just scrolling through. So on the first one, which says none, it's a bit of a misnomer, honestly, because what it does is it takes the incoming message, which is 77, and it actually just outputs the same message. And there may... Oh, sorry, I'm blocking it, aren't I? I'm watching Florian's face, and he's like, I can't see it. There may be a better way to do this. Actually, is there a better way to do that, Florian?
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Okay, so essentially, and what I learned in here, which was kind of cool, is I took this variable, this CC77 variable, and it gives you this option to check this box so that it stores the value here in QQ. So then when it outputs, I've set it to output to 77, but it will send the value of the original controller. So that way it's able to follow the full range when I move it. And I did that for each of these. But now, if you look at preset 1, the incoming message is actually still the same. But what I've just done is change the outputting message to a different CC number with that same variable of QQ. And again, in preset 3, the incoming message is still the same, but the outcoming message is different. And so then when we get into Gig Performer and we click through here, you'll see, and actually we should talk a little bit about this, but as I scroll through, it's seeing that it is, oops, I'm blocking us. Let me see, I gotta move us around here. You'll see as I step through, it's receiving the original and also the ones that are translated. So Florian, what is a virtual MIDI port?
So a virtual MIDI port is sort of as if you had a MIDI interface connected to your computer and it loops right back, so you can use it in a different application. So it's an internal inside your computer MIDI cable, so you can send stuff from MIDI Translator to Gig Performer and vice versa. Get MIDI data out of Gig Performer into MIDI Translator, and from MIDI Translator you can route it and transform it any way you like.
Yes. And for Mac users, they may be familiar with an IAC driver.
Yes, it's exactly like an IAC driver, just that it's built into MIDI Translator on both Windows and Mac, where you can select up to 9 virtual MIDI ports directly.
Yes. So virtual ports are really cool. And there's even ways to do virtual audio, which is outside of the scope of this episode, but having it inside of your computer is really powerful. All right, I'm excited for this one because this is the one that Steve built. And I was chatting ahead of time with Florian, and I was like, hey, you know what would be awesome is if we could have it so that I could use a knob on my MIDI controller to help me build my sounds. And he was like, yeah, I think this is possible. And so we have this really cool thing here, which is if I mouse over a parameter that I want to adjust, I can then come here and move my controller and adjust these knobs. So I've got kind of, a low-level hardware feel using a software synth, which I love this. This is so cool for me. And if you're doing a lot of tweaking inside of a synthesizer, this could be very compelling because you don't actually need to map all of these knobs if you're going to be tweaking a bunch of devices. When you're in building mode, you could use a preset like this so that you can adjust things. And, for this stream, my mouse and my controller are right next to each other just because of the layout. but you would have your one hand on a mouse, your other hand on your controller, and you would be moving very quickly, which is quite powerful. So when you're building your rig, trying to tweak synths and presets, you pull up Bome MIDI Translator. You can twist these knobs, adjust things to your liking. And then when you perform in Gig Performer, you can have only the most important controls. Because during live performance, you don't need access to all 32 knobs on your synthesizer. You probably just need one or two. But let's have a look inside of Bome MIDI Translator and see how much of this I actually understand of what was built. So let me pull this over here. And Florian, you can fill in the gap here. But we'll click through one at a time. So it seems here like they're just selecting the name. Doesn't do much other than that. But let's look at click down. So actually, Florian, can you tell me what is happening here? What does this incoming perform mean?
So Steve set this up, and he's a master wizard of Bome MIDI Translator.
Yes.
Often enough, he knows a way how to use it that I would have never thought of. So
that's awesome.
So he's using a relatively new feature called Perform, which allows you to feed back an event into MIDI Translator itself. It helps you a lot in abstracting things out. So he has this set up this perform click down so that can be triggered from different sources, and they all go back into this click down perform. So it'll execute this translator. So let's see.
Okay.
And we'll see somewhere else where the perform is triggered.
Got it.
Here, it's as the title suggests, it'll put your left mouse button down. So it's really, as you say, it has a raw feel to it, or like a hardware feel. Yes. It's really pressing down the button on your mouse virtually, or it's an emulation. And that's what you need to do. If you want to control a software knob with your mouse, you first have to position your mouse pointer, then click the button, and then move up and down to change it. So the first thing that needs to be done is mouse down. So that's happening here.
All right.
And then maybe go to below
to drag
the drag one. So here it's also perform. That will probably execute the mouse movement. Let's see further down. And that's what it is.
There you go.
And it goes down or up with the value pp. And pp is also a variable that is sent to this perform.
Got it. Oh, and there's our reverse from earlier. Remember, I was like, oh, it's going backwards. I see.
Yes. So this is, I don't know exactly, but we would need to ask Pete for the details. But the main thing is this translator will execute the mouse movement. And let's see. Let's go to the first translator here. And the incoming message, if you scroll up a little bit, that's the MIDI message from your knob.
Yep.
So the tricky part here is the knob doesn't have a notion of pressing down first. Right. So if we go to the rules, I'm pretty sure that's where it's happening. If we look a little bit further down, there's some calculations on the values, and then go further down in the rules, and there we see the perform drag.
Yes.
Which means whenever you change the value of the knob, it'll call the drag. Oh yeah, and as you point out, right above is the perform to click down. So, but that's only done once at the beginning. So he has set up a variable GC that is 0 in normal mode, and then the mouse button down executed with this perform, and then it's dragged, and then the variable GC is set to 1. So the next time this is executed, when you move the knob, the perform click down is not executed, so that we don't click down on the mouse all the time.
Yes, right.
So you see, there are ways to have logic in there, do things only on conditional ways, but in the end it works. You move your mouse with your physical mouse, and then via MIDI you can do a drag up and drag down.
Yes. Yes, and it feels awesome. I see somebody in the comments asking if we can get this. I have no problem sharing this at all. So I will post it in the Gig Performer forum. And Steve, who built this is basically unchanged, maybe can also post it in the Bome forum. So it exists in both places.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So these are just 2 examples, but hopefully it's kind of got your mind ticking a little bit. Somebody wants you to explain local and global variables.
Yeah, that's a good question that comes up way too many times.
Sure.
So the I must confess, the name local versus global variable is even not a good name.
Okay.
So the actual idea is that a local variable is tied to an incoming event. So if you have an incoming MIDI message, it comes with a set of local variables which you can use with this message. But when that MIDI message is done, being processed through the MIDI engine, maybe sent out to somewhere else, but eventually that MIDI message is not used anymore, and then this set of local variables is gone. But in parallel, if you have 2 controllers, you can move them at the same time. So if you use local variables for example, converting the controller on both ones, if you do it in exactly at the same time, you can't run into conflicts by using local variables because they are always tied to the incoming MIDI message.
Got it.
And those local variables, they are variables that have double letters like PP, QQ, RR. It's a I wish I had taken a different route 20 years ago with those variable naming, but that's what we have, and hopefully in the near future we will have better variable naming in MIDI Translator. But this is what we have right now. PP, QQ, RR, and so on are local variables, and all other 2-letter combinations like GA, GB, G0, H1, whatever, those are global variables, and they never change their value. So you can set them in one translator and then use them in a different translator without problems, because they can be used everywhere. But as said, here, if you change them from 2 different MIDI controllers at the same time, you may not achieve what you want because you don't know which controller comes first and which one comes next. So that's the global variables. You need to make sure that you don't have these race conditions, which when you set them and when you read them.
Yes.
So it's.
Yes.
It sounds more complicated, I guess, than what it is in practice. The general rule of thumb is use local variables if you can, because they don't have these race conditions. But if you want to remember state, then use global variables.
Yes. And when it comes time to use them, you'll probably remember how to use them because they'll have context.
Yes.
And that will
Exactly.
help. That will
Yeah.
help. So for okay. Somebody has a question here. If I had a guitar set up in Gig Performer, but I want one button to turn on a distortion, a delay, and a reverb by clicking one MIDI button. So, Monte, this could probably be done in either software. But in Gig Performer, you would just use a variation. So if you had let's make a new rack space. If you had, let's say, a couple of buttons, and let's say each of these went to your different effects, whatever they are, you could add a variation. And in this one here, you would have these two down. And in this one here, you could have these two down. And then you can switch between those configurations. So that's, oops, didn't actually, there we go. So that's very easy to do inside of Gig Performer without needing to do any MIDI translation. But yeah, I'm sure you could just set up a simple translator where one incoming MIDI message has, is that right, Florian? Like if you had,
Yes.
you had
Yeah.
one, basically one translator per, and then the incoming trigger is the same for each one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the easiest way to have one MIDI message triggering multiple things at once, or sending out multiple MIDI messages at once.
Yes, absolutely. Now, one thing that's really cool, I mean, there are a lot of things that are really cool, but the Bome Box has the ability to remember all of this stuff. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and how that works? And by the way,
Yes.
why that might even be compelling?
Yeah. So I try to explain.
Great.
So so this is a Bome Box. It has, can you see this? Yeah,
Yep.
MIDI connectors in and out, and also a USB host. And it's also network enabled, so you can plug it into a network, and that's recommended because that's sort of one of the main functionality to connect your MIDI gear via the network to other Bome Boxes or to a computer, or just connect it to a network and then eventually have all this entire network of MIDI devices. It comes with Ethernet, as you've seen, but also with built-in Wi-Fi. So you can have wireless MIDI. Depending on what you're doing, we may not recommend to use it for real-time MIDI because it's still Wi-Fi, and you especially in live situations, you may run into problems just due to the nature of Wi-Fi, not because it's worse or better than in the Bome Box than any other Wi-Fi.
Yes.
So it's, if you can, use an Ethernet cable for MIDI networks.
Yes.
And so that's the Bome Box has all the routing functionality built in that the software MIDI Translator has, but it also, as Brett just mentioned, also allows you to load up these MIDI mappings, these project files, directly into the Bome Box. You can upload hundreds, thousands of project files and enable them. Even use MIDI commands to switch projects if you want to have different ones for different songs or different days or different setups. And then the Bome Box does all the MIDI mapping and logic and cycling of presets, or all that we have seen and much more in the box. So one of the main use cases for that is if you want to offload all your MIDI mapping and MIDI routing to hardware. You can put it into the Bome Box and it runs it all standalone with no worries about, the worries that you have when using a computer that all programs need to be running, no driver conflicts, no update going on, and you can also, of course, put the Bome Box where your MIDI gear is. For example, right with the guitar pedals, because it's much more robust than a computer, right? So you don't risk having a computer everywhere on your stage. You can have the Bome Box convert your MIDI messages to the Ethernet, and then it all goes back to the keyboarder, for example, who's running Gig Performer, or to a computer off stage, or to front of house via Ethernet. So these are typical use cases for the Bome Box.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like, number one, it eliminates the need for your computer to process. And number two, it's actually doing something that is not done often, at least to my knowledge. Maybe it's happening all around me and I don't know. But it's that you're sending MIDI over Ethernet rather than over MIDI cable.
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly.
Why might that be good? Like, I can think of a couple reasons, but I'm just curious from your perspective. Like, why is sending MIDI over Ethernet a compelling and useful way to send MIDI?
So there are a couple of reasons. First of all, Ethernet has way more bandwidth. Usual Ethernet has 100 megabit or 1,000 megabit, compared to MIDI DIN, which is just 32 kilobit.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
So with just one Ethernet cable, you can run hundreds of MIDI streams at the same time, and they all have this very good latency, usually much less than 1 millisecond, and so it's comparable for timing to MIDI DIN, but you don't need one cable for each direction and for each MIDI port, but you can run all your MIDI ports through one Ethernet cable. And then maximum distance for Ethernet is 100 meters, yards, I would guess.
Okay. Yeah.
And MIDI DIN only allows you to to expand it to 10 meters.
Wow.
So that is quite a limitation if you're on stage and want to have MIDI everywhere. USB is even worse because it typically doesn't even allow you to run 10-meter cables. And timing is actually worse on USB MIDI. Not much, but Ethernet is basically a fantastic transport for MIDI. And I hope it's gonna be used much more.
So I had no idea about any of those things. That's awesome. Also, Ethernet cables have clips on them.
Yes,
and
that's
MIDI
true.
Does not. So I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'm not gonna bump it out. So if you were running, let's say, I'm a keyboard player, and when I play keyboard, I plug my MIDI keyboard into my computer via a USB cable, which I think is pretty common. The Bome Box, in theory, could stand in the middle of that. I could run MIDI out of my keyboard into the Bome Box, into an Ethernet cable, and then send that anywhere that I would like to.
Yes.
So if
exactly.
I wanted to have my computer 100 meters away, I could have the Bome Box right next to me on stage and run the Ethernet cable to a computer way off-site, or at least way further than, which would then keep the computer out of the way and would allow me to send MIDI quite a long distance. So even if you weren't translating, there may still be a reason you might want to use this.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Actually, a lot of people use it just for long distance MIDI and to create a network of MIDI devices, because you can just plug in a Bome Box wherever you need MIDI functionality or connect a MIDI device. and it'll all connect to the same network. So again, to run it to front of house, for example, you only need one cable.
Yes.
And it also works well in combination with audio over Ethernet, like Dante.
Yes.
MIDI uses so little bandwidth that a lot of people use it on the same network as Dante.
Wow.
So again, only one cable for all your audio and MIDI needs.
Very cool. Which is kind of bumping us up against one of your other products, which is the Bome Network.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Right. So the Bome Network tool, it's a small software that you install on your computer, and the basic idea is to get all the network advantages on your computer, and have MIDI networks easily set up from computer to computer, computer to Bome Box, and also Bome Network is available for on iOS, so you can add iOS devices, tablets, iPhones into the mix, and they all are accessible. The software that is running on those devices, or the actual MIDI devices that you plug into any Bome Box or any computer anywhere, they are all available on every other computer and device. So you can share MIDI devices by all your computers running the Bome Network software.
Wow. Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around that a little bit. So on like a basic level, if I was performing with 3 other people using Gig Performer and I needed to occasionally play their rig, I could do that using Bome MIDI software, or the network.
The Bome Network. Yeah, that's probably relatively easy to set up.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah. Or, I mean, have a Bome Box. You can use a USB hub to connect up to 32 devices to one Bome Box. So imagine the entire keyboarder rig is now connected to one Bome Box. And typically you would connect it to your computer running Gig Performer, but maybe you have a software running on your iPad that you also want to drive with one of your keyboards. So you just install Bome Network on your iPad, connect to that keyboard, basically, connect that keyboard's MIDI port via the Bome Box, and then you can play it, and the MIDI is routed to your computer still. That's still happening, and also to your iPad.
What I didn't realize till you just said it was I can plug a USB hub into a Bome Box.
Yes.
So that makes it so you can connect a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
And you can also connect a keyboard, right? Like a typing keyboard.
Yes, that's kind of advanced functionality, but yeah, you can use a computer keyboard, attach it to a Bome Box, and then use the same MIDI translation rules with keystroke as incoming and anything you like as outgoing. Send MIDI, or send a whole range of MIDI messages, for example, for a quick changing of your setup, so that I don't know, lots of possibilities there too.
Yes. So, we just got a question coming in. Do you need a Bome Box at each computer?
So not if you. So basically, if you have a computer, then you can just run the Bome Network software and plug all your MIDI gear into the computer. So then you don't need the Bome Box. Many people use just one Bome Box with their sort of remote MIDI gear, and then use it from the computer via Ethernet. If they're within your sort of immediate in distance, then you can. It's probably better to connect everything directly to the computer.
Yes. Yep. Makes a ton of sense. All right. If you have any questions for Florian while he's here, do put them into the chat and we will answer them. So let's see. Clint wrote in, it lets me move my hardware around the studio from my road rig to my development system, and it is transparent to my Bome Box. So yeah, lots of different potential use cases for it. Jim Irwin has a question. Does Bome Box with Bome Network support connecting the Ethernet to a switch that the computer is already connected to?
Yes, so the answer is yes, and that's how it often works. The Bome Box uses just standard IP networking, so it works along any typical network that you have set up. I know, for example, TV studios use it a lot because they have already Ethernet set up from the control room to the studios. And so they just plug in a Bome Box into the studio's Ethernet connector, and then they have access to that one from each of the control rooms via Ethernet. But also, if you have just your studio network, just plug in a Bome Box anywhere on the network, and it'll be reachable from any computer and iPad connected to that network.
Wow.
And as you may have not seen it, but the Bome Box has 2 Ethernet ports, and they act as a small switch. So you can daisy chain Ethernet devices, Bome Boxes, or other devices that you want to have in your Ethernet network.
Wow.
Without a switch then. But of course, it also works with other standard switches.
Wow. He also wants to know, so it has a DHCP client? Is this... This has gone over my head.
So yeah, the Bome Box can be configured as a DHCP client, and that's actually the default configuration. It can also take over the network. You can configure it as a DHCP master. So it's a DHCP server then. Or the third simple setup functionality is to set it up as a fixed IP address. And then it has an advanced configuration where you can configure just about anything of the network.
Yeah.
But few people need it. We try to make simple things simple to configure.
Right. Yeah, and much can almost always be done with the foundational features of a thing.
Yeah.
If you're doing something compelling anyway. Complicated things are usually simple things stacked on top of each other. So I guess that's not always true, but I love it. So folks who have been following Gig Performer for a while know that one of the things that we do is we partner with software companies when we actually use their products. So we try and recommend products to our customers that we use ourselves. Now, until just before this stream, I never used this product, but David, who is the co-founder and writes a lot of stuff with, he does all the coding. He built the software with his partner Naboja, uses this for all of his live performances. And so when he connected with Florian, we wanted to invite him to be a partner. So for those of you who are watching right now, live on our Gig Performer website, and I'll let you talk about your end as well, but we've partnered together to offer our customers a mutual 10% discount. So if you are a Bome Box user and you are playing music live and you'd like to try Gig Performer, you can access a 10% discount on our software. And if you are a Gig Performer user and you would like to try Bome Box, you can also access a 10% discount on the Bome software. Florian, do you want to talk about how that works on your end?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Just what you said, plus it's not only true for the Bome Box, but any MIDI product, MIDI Translator Pro, Bome Network, and Bome Box, those 3 products that we've just mentioned. Actually, Bome Network, the basic version is free. It allows you to have MIDI connections to the Bome Box. And then there's Bome Network Pro, which costs a little bit, but that allows you to have connections, MIDI connections to other computers via Bome Network.
Yes.
And either of these licenses, Bome MIDI Translator Pro or Bome Network Pro, or a registered Bome Box, will get you the 10% discount for Gig Performer.
Yes, and how do they
vice
access
versa.
that?
And yes, for the Bome customers, you go to your Bome account on bome.com, and there's a new area that will be unlocked in a couple of minutes.
Got it.
And that's the partners area, and there you'll have a little form where you need to fill out your email address, and then you will get the 10% discount code from Gig Performer.
Yes. And
I think it's similar.
On our end, same thing. gigperformer.com/partners. You'll see Bome software is on there. And if you're a Gig Performer user, you want to try the software, you'll enter in your email and license code, and we'll produce a coupon for you. So that's that. If you have any more questions, do put them in, because we would love to answer them if possible. But I do have a question for you. Usually I ask people at the end a Gig Performer related question, but my question for you is, are you still using the original synthesizer that sparked this business? Is it still in existence?
I wish. So of course, and I'm not alone here as a developer.
Yes.
I spent way too much coding and way too little making actual music.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm not using that synthesizer again anymore. I still have it. It's behind there in the closet.
Yes. Yes.
But I still perform music on my cello.
Oh, nice.
I do that a lot, but for electronic music, I just don't find the time, or although I have all the gear and software I could dream of.
Yes.
So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to pick that up anytime in the future.
Yeah, what we need to do is have a round 2 of Backstage where you plug your cello into Gig Performer.
Oh, yes.
This is kind of a random use case, but now my head is really ticking. And we'll wrap up here in a moment. But we have in Gig Performer something called an envelope follower, which will convert the volume of an input to a MIDI CC message.
Nice.
Which you can then send anywhere you want. So we could use the volume of your cello to create a MIDI CC message, which we could pump into Bome MIDI Translator to do some stuff. I'm seeing a whole episode unfolding before my eyes, Florian.
Yeah.
We'll talk more later, but I love it.
And we use that for Lightroom editing.
Yes, exactly.
So I play cello to edit my photos.
Yeah, you have to get the exact dynamic correct. Otherwise, your photo will be terrible.
Exactly. Good for practicing.
Yes, exactly. Well, friends, thank you so much for being here. Florian, true honor to interview you, and we love what you've created. So thank you.
You're very welcome. It was great to be on here.
Yes.
Thank you.
And for those who are watching, we'll be back next week with Don Yakowski talking about his breath controller and his Gig Performer setup. Florian, truly an honor. Friends who are watching, thank you for being here. We'll be back next week, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.